وقال قرينه هذا ما لدي عتيد صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Thank you, Brother Hassam, for the beautiful Quran recitation. And my condolences to you all on this Shahadat of Imam Askari. Inshallah, we're going to have Sheikh Salim come up and speak about tonight. Please we'll invite him up with a loud salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين وسيد المرسلين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعن الله الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين من ليلتنا هذه إلى قيام يوم الدين. Respected brothers and sisters, for the benefit of all the marhumin and marhumat, in particular the marhumin for whom tonight's program has been sponsored, Marhum Muhammad Abbas and Marhum Amanullah Sajanlal, and for all of your marhumin and marhumat, let's gift them with the recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha after a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We've gathered here on this evening to commemorate the martyrdom of our 11th Imam, the father of our living Imam. And on this occasion, we want to express our condolences to the Imam of our time and to all of the lovers and followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. Inshallah, your presence in this gathering tonight is a source of pride for the Imam of our time. And inshallah, he will look upon our attendance kindly, and he will be a wasila for us. And may Allah accept all your good intentions in participating in tonight's program. I want to mention a little bit about the history of Imam Askari alayhi salam. Very briefly, I want to talk about one of the incidents that took place relating to taqiyya at the time of Imam Askari alayhi salam. And then I want to look at one of the hadiths that the Imam has given us regarding the topic of the emotion of fear. So those are the two things I want to, inshallah, go through tonight. The first has to do with, as I mentioned, the topic of taqiyya. So the Imams in general, and particular the latter Imams, they lived at times which were very difficult for them and for the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalam. At times, they commanded their followers to take a special strategy of hiding who they were on the outside. And so in one of the hadiths, it's a very interesting hadith, and it might seem like something a little bit minor, but it's significant in its own, and it has to do with wearing a ring. So before I mention the hadith, I want to just mention that one of the etiquettes of a Muslim and of a believer is to wear a ring. And in hadith, we're told that the wearing of a ring was a tradition which was started from the first of the prophets. I mean, Nabi Adam alayhi salam used to wear a ring. Because if you think about it, it's kind of something that's part of our culture, but I don't know if you ever thought about why is it that we take a piece of metal or something else and we put it around our finger, right? It's just kind of like, it's a bit, it's funny in some ways. Why around a finger, and why particularly do we have a finger which is known as the ring finger? So this is something, it's not a new thing. It goes back all the way till the first of the human beings, Nabi Adam alayhi salam. And we have some very interesting hadiths which talk about how and why the prophets and then after them the imams used to wear rings. And a good number of them talk about this concept that the ring was not only for adorning, it wasn't just something which was in a mark of something to enhance the beauty, but it was a means of remembering Allah. So for example, we're told that Nabi Nuh alayhi salam, in order to, when the ark of Nabi Nuh alayhi salam had taken, it had gone on its journey, and there was a huge storm, the people on board, they felt that they themselves were in danger of being drowned. So at that time, Allah taught Nabi Nuh alayhi salam some words by which he can remember Allah, and he and those with him can find peace, and their hearts can be at rest even though everything is in turmoil around them. So Nabi Nuh alayhi salam was so in love with those words that he had been taught. He said that what a good thing it would be if I were to inscribe these words on my ring. And that's what he did. And then his ring had those words of remembrance. And similarly, the words that Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam learned at the time that he was about to be thrown into, anybody want to say? Into the fire, right? So when he was about to throw into the fire, then he is also taught some words, and those words also then are inscribed in his ring. And one of the things that's known about like our Prophet and the Imams alayhim salam after him is that each one of them had certain words that were inscribed on their rings as well. Now, wearing a ring is one thing, but how should we wear it? Should we wear it on our right hand or should we wear it on our left hand? And I want to mention one thing here is that in the Islamic discussions, when we talk about rings, we're talking about something that is different than a band. Like a band, like typically like people who get married, they have a wedding band that they have. It doesn't have a stone on it, or it's maybe small stones. It's just kind of like it's a band. A ring is something which has like a proper stone on it. It's those things that, for example, a aqiq ring or a firuz ring or something like that. So when you're talking about like the ahadiths about what hand to wear the ring on, we're talking about this type of ring, not like this type of thing right here. So please don't worry if, like your spouse, some of you who are married, your spouses might get worried if you start taking off the ring with the finger with the ring, the band, and putting it away or putting on another finger or something like that. That can stay there. We're talking about this ring right here. So it's an interesting thing. I don't want to go into too much detail here, but in the traditions of both Ahlus Sunnah and Shia, we're told that our Prophet used to wear his ring on his right hand. Not only that, we find traditions in, of course in the Shia, but also in Ahlus Sunnah books that Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam used to wear a ring in his right hand. And generally, the Muslims were following the Prophet's Sunnah, and they were also wearing their ring in the right hand. And then, it's very interesting. The first person who decided, famously known, the first person who wore his ring in his left hand, anybody know who it was? Muawiyah. Exactly. Muawiyah wore the ring in his left hand. And some of the hadiths indicate that it was a symbolic gesture. And one of his people, he actually did that as a way of saying that, see, Imam Ali alayhi salam had the khilafah, and we can, just like we can take off this ring and we can dispose him of the position of the khilafah as well. So now we put on the left, and it goes from Amir al-Islam to Muawiyah. Now, it wasn't a very good analogy, right? Because to go from the right to the left, talking about symbolism, it's, in a way, you're saying that you're going from hidayah, from guidance, to dalala, misguidance. But anyways, that's what they did. And so they promoted this culture of wearing the ring in the left hand. And then after them, that became the norm. And then with the Abbasids, there was briefly a switch back to wearing it in the right hand, but afterwards it was something that was promoted to wear it in the left hand. So we find that the latter Abbasid Khalifas would wear the ring in the left hand. Now, throughout all of this, we see that one of the marks of the Shias was that they would wear their ring in their right hand. Okay, and we have two well-known hadith. One of them is very famous, and one of them is a little bit less famous, but it's generally known, from Imam Askari alayhi salam, about what hand you should wear your ring in. So in one hadith, which you all probably have heard before, he says that there are 5 signs of the believer. Right? When do we normally talk about this hadith of the 5 signs of the believer? On the idea of arba'in, right? One of the 5 signs is the ziyarah of the arba'in, right? The other one is at-takhattum bil-yamin, meaning that when you wear your ring in the right hand. And then wa ta'afirul jabin. Ta'afirul jabin is that you take your forehead and you put it on the ground. And the other one is al-jahru bi bismillahir rahmanir rahim, that when you do your prayers, that you should do the bismillahir rahmanir rahim out loud. Okay, now this is a point I'm sure brothers and sisters are aware, but just as a reminder that especially for the brothers, that when we do our dhuhr and asr prayers, even though the surahs are to be done quietly, it's recommended to do the bismillahir rahmanir rahim out loud. So we say bismillahir rahmanir rahim, and then we do the rest of the surah quietly. And that's something which we learned from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. And then the 5th one is Salatul Khamsin, meaning to do the 50 rak'ahs of prayer, or in some hadith it's mentioned 51, and that refers to the nawafil prayers. We have 17 rak'ahs which are wajib and 34 which are mustahab, and they're part of the nafilas for each one of the prayers. So there, Imam Askari says that one of the signs of the Shia is to wear your ring in the right hand, and that's how the Shias were known. Okay, even now, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but sometimes you might meet somebody, and it's happened to me. I meet somebody, I don't know really kind of their background, where they're coming from. It's a gathering where there's different people from different backgrounds and whatnot, different schools of thought. And then I noticed that they're wearing a aqiq ring on their right hand. Okay, that usually, is a sign, right, of something, right? And you can kind of connect on the basis of that ring and be like, hey, nice ring, right? And it can be a good conversation starter, if you know what I mean. Now, there's another hadith in which, it's a very interesting hadith, which says that Imam Askari alayhi salam, in one gathering, he ordered his Shias, he says that we now order you to do at-takhattum fil... No, he says that we used to order you to do at-takhattum fil yamin, and now we order you to do at-takhattum fil shimal. Okay? So now we're telling you to switch your ring from your right hand to your left hand. And then he gives a reason for that. He says that because of our ghaiba from you, until Allah reveals His matter. Now, what does it mean for His ghaiba? You know that Imam Askari alayhi salam was under severe watch. He was under house arrest. At times, he was in prison. And we know that Imam Askari alayhi salam sometimes purposely would hide himself from, meaning he would keep himself undisclosed, and he would sometimes talk to people behind a curtain. All this was for strategic reasons, for safety reasons, and also as a way of preparing people for the ghaiba of the Imam of our time. And then when he does that, then the hadith says that all those who were gathered, they took their rings from their right finger and they moved it to their left finger, just like right then, because the Imam had ordered it. And then he tells them that make sure that the rest of the Shias know this as well. Okay? Now, the hadith scholars, when they come to this hadith, they say that this is actually not the first time in the history of the Imams that they commanded the Shias to move their ring from the right hand to the left hand. We see that at the time of Imam Hassan alayhi salam at one point, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam. At certain points, they would wear their finger in the left hand, and they would order their Shias to do that as well. And this is all, when we look at it from a distance now, right? We can start thinking about this, that what kind of conditions would be present that the Shias were told at some points to hide even this part of their identity, like what hand you put your finger, your ring finger, what finger you put your ring on your right, the finger of your right hand, or the finger of your left hand. Now, it shows us, a little bit about the critical situation, but it also teaches us like a very important point, that being a Shia, being a follower of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, is not limited to an outer expression of identity. Okay? Now, there are wajibat, and those we cannot compromise on. But some of the other things, right, they're either at the level of something which is mustahab or something which is part of the etiquette, and at times, right, it's not needed, or something which actually for safety reasons is better not to observe it. Okay, I'm not talking about the wajibat. Wajibat have their own place. Now, sometimes we might see that people make a mistake here. They're like, if I want to build my Shia identity, right, I need to really work on the outer, right? So I'll buy let's say very fancy, expensive rings. I'll decorate all my fingers with these rings, right? And I'll wear like this and that and whatnot, right? I'll have a chain, I'll have this. Okay, and I'm not saying that that's wrong, but I'm saying that should not be that which is our true identity as a Shia. The true identity of a Shia comes down to our adherence to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Are we in obedience to them or not? Are we following what they dictate? The other things, come secondary. Again, I'm not talking about the wajibat. They have their own place. I'm talking about the etiquette and the mustahabat. So this is something which I thought it was worth noting here. It's an interesting, a little bit of history from the time of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Of course, wearing a ring is one thing, but it was much more severe than that. At times, they were forced to, renounce parts of their beliefs and to do certain other things just to prove that they, were accepting of the political regime at that time. And, at times they would be worried that, okay, are we still Shias even though we have to outwardly renounce? And they would be assured that if in your hearts you still have that iman, then yes, indeed you are the Shias of the Ahlul Bayt. Please recite salawat. Okay, the second topic I wanted to cover here again is inspired by a hadith from the Imam Askari alayhi salam, in which he talks about the concept of fear. So in this hadith, Imam Askari alayhi salam narrates, he actually narrates from his great-grandfather, Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam Ali alayhi salam. Please recite salawat. So he says that one day Imam Ali alayhi salam saw this one man, and he saw the traces of fear on his face. Okay, so Imam Ali alayhi salam, he went up to him and he says, tell me, what are you going through here? Okay, and this is interesting and important to note here that our Imams were concerned about the emotional health of their followers. So if they saw somebody was distraught, somebody was very upset, they would go up to them and find out what's going on, right? And this is a good lesson for us, right? If we see sometimes maybe somebody is looking a little bit different, a little bit disturbed, withdrawn, pale, whatever it may be, right? It's a good idea to go up and check. Hey, I just wanted to see everything going okay. You haven't heard from them for some time. Everything okay? So then this man tells him, Inni akhaf Allah. I'm in fear of God, right? I fear Allah. Now, you might think here that if somebody says that they fear Allah, then we'd be like, MashaAllah, that's amazing, right? You're so much in fear of Allah that you have fear showing on your face. But that's not what Imam Ali alayhi salam did. Okay, he didn't just take it at that, right? And this is again a very important point for us to realize, that sometimes we have an understanding, a type of belief, a type of aqidah, which is somehow misplaced or incorrectly formed, and it's leading us to have divergencies in our practice of the religion. And so it's really important to always, to check ourselves. Do we actually have the right belief? Sometimes people go to the ecstasies, and they're like extremely, let's say, worried about, the smallest of things, right? For example, they get really, really worried about, did something najas come on my clothes, right? And these type of things. And that's an example of waswas. There's other examples as well. And that sometimes comes from misplaced roots, and the roots haven't been set firmly in the right way. So Imam Ali goes, now he wants to correct this man. He wants to teach him something. He says, Ya Abdullah. And the reason why I'm mentioning this again is because it's narrated from Imam Askari alayhi salam. It's found in the book which is known as Tafsir of Imam Askari alayhi salam. Imam Askari is the only Imam from whom an entire tafsir of the Quran is narrated. Okay, now whether all of it's accurate or not, that's a different question. But the other Imams, we have hadiths which explain the Quran, but this is the only Imam from which we have, the tafsir. So he says, O servant of Allah, he says, instead of taking the approach that you're taking, he says, first of all, if you want to fear something, you should fear your sins. Khaf dhunubak. Okay, if you're saying you're fearing Allah, what you should be focused on is, are you in line with what God wants of you? And then he gives him another thing that you should fear. He says, وَخَفْ عَدْلَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكَ فِي مَظَالِمِ عِبَادِهِ. He says, if you want to fear something, then fear your transgressions upon the servants of Allah. Meaning that if other people have a right on you, fear that you violate that right that they have upon you. And what Allah would do in order to take justice from that. So that's something that you should be focused on. Okay? Then he says, وَأَطِعْهُ فِي مَا كَلَّفْ. Obey him in what he has commanded you to do. وَلَا تَعْصِهِ فِي مَا يُسْتَهُكَ. When in what he has told you is good for you, then don't disobey him. And then ثُمَّ لَا تَخَفِ اللَّهِ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ فَإِنَّهُ لَا يَظْلِمُ أَحَدًا. After that point, then don't be in the state of fear of Allah, because He is one who will never do injustice. Okay, now this is very interesting. Imam alayhi salam is teaching him a way of looking at God and His justice. Right? There's one time when somebody thinks of God as being just somebody who acts randomly, right? Does some things without any reason behind them. And He's very powerful and very mighty, right? And He's in charge of everything. Then of course we would be in a state of constant fear of what is He going to do next to us. There's another time when we understand that Allah operates on the basis of justice. In fact, even beyond justice, we're told that Allah not only does adl, but He does something called fadl, which means that He goes way beyond what justice would call for in showing us His bounty and His grace. So when we have that understanding, the type of fear that we have of Allah takes on a different, nature to it. And this is where, it's important for us to look at what the Quran says. The Quran says, introduces very important topics. I don't want to go through all of it, just very briefly. In one of the ayahs in Surah An-Nazi'at, Allah Ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَىٰ. He says that whoever has fear of the maqam of his Lord. Maqam means the status and the position. Right? There's one time when somebody says that they're fearful of God. God is a scary entity. Okay, well, if somebody thinks of God as a scary entity, will they love God? Will they be able to appreciate Him? Will they want to connect with Him? Will they want to get closer to Him? No. If they think of God as a scary entity, they want to run away from Him as much as possible. Right? Why would I want to remember the scary entity? So, what the Quran teaches us is that if you want to fear something, fear the maqam of your Lord. Okay, now what does it mean to fear the maqam and the position of our Lord? This is where we have a beautiful hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, please recite salawat. He says, whoever knows that Allah sees him, and whoever knows that Allah hears what he says, and whoever knows that Allah knows what he does from good and evil, and that prevents him from doing, those type of deeds which are, unworthy, then that person has feared the position of their Lord, and they have, done what the rest of the ayah says. So here, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is telling us that what it means to fear Allah is actually something that comes from understanding what it means for Allah to be present. Right? When we have that understanding, right, then it has a practical implication on what we do and what we don't do. Okay, in other ayahs, Allah talks about the concept of fear by using the word khashya. So, for example, we have إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهِ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ. Allah says that if somebody has knowledge, then they would have reverence from Allah. Now, this is very important too. The type of reverence and fear that the Quran promotes is one that comes from understanding Allah's greatness and sensing that greatness. Normally, when we talk about pondering upon Allah, we talk about, usually we say that, okay, can you think about Allah's blessings, things that He's done for you, that you can feel grateful for? Okay? I want to ask you to do something for like 5 seconds here, because if I do any longer, people will be like, wait, that's not a speech, right? So, okay, let's do for 5 seconds. I want you to ponder upon the azama, the greatness of Allah. Okay, can we do that for 5 seconds? Just ponder upon the azama of Allah. Okay. Okay, now rest of it is homework, inshallah. Okay. But even in that 5 seconds, right, when you open up that door of your heart to ponder upon the azama of Allah, then you realize that this is something which is incredible. This is infinite, right? Because we're talking about the being who is infinite. There's no limitations. There's no shortcomings. There's no weaknesses. And this being, I'm in His presence, right? In a way that He's closer to me than I myself am. So when I ponder upon that, obviously I would feel something in my heart. I would be affected by it. And that feeling is something which is very, very valuable. Now, practically, right, this has very important applications in our life. For example, okay, when somebody has true fear of Allah, not the type of fear that this man had, that Imam alayhi salam corrected, right? Not that he thinks of God as a scary creature that he wants to run away from. And when somebody has true fear of Allah, it helps them to have less fear of Allah's creation. One of the most difficult things that people struggle with in their lives is problems they have because they feel that somebody is such a nuisance in their lives and somebody is such a bothersome person, and they feel so affected by them. right? And sometimes they have haqq, meaning that person has violated their rights. But it gets to the point where they can't function anymore because of the thoughts of what this person is like, what they've done to them. So for them, right, if they were to spend some time pondering upon the greatness of Allah, then they would see that the greatness of God's creation starts to diminish, right? Because after all, that's just a person, right? Allah's greatness is more than them, right? Sometimes, we're so affected by, let's say we lose a friend, right? It's like, okay, we lost a friend, but we haven't lost Allah, right? Allah's still present. So practically, we can use that as a way of easing our tensions, okay? One of the other things that we can learn from this is that when we have the right fear of Allah, then it's something which is compatible with love, right? Because now, when the same way we can ponder upon His azama, we can ponder upon His rahmah as well. What has Allah done for me? And what have I done to deserve that? And as I start to think about that, I feel love towards Him, right? I do have to spend that time. I can't just say it. But if I do spend that time, I start to feel that love as well. And that's a beautiful concept, this fear which also comes along with love. Finally, if we are in the position that we're able to guide, let's say, our children, teach them about Allah, we want to make sure that we use the right way of introducing Allah. The wrong way is to introduce Allah as this scary entity who's waiting around the corner to pounce on us. That's wrong. The wrong way is the other extreme, where we try to introduce God as like a Santa Claus God, right? That He's just nice and He's just, kind, and that's all He does, right? That's not correct either, okay? What we want to do is introduce God where we appreciate His position, right? We ponder upon His position, ponder upon His mercy, and we see Him both as the entity of fearing His position, having reverence for that, and also having love towards Him. This, alhamdulillah, are some outcomes and some lessons that we learned from Imam Askari alayhi salam. We pray that Allah Ta'ala gives us even more knowledge about the teachings of Quran and Ahlul Bayt and allows us to apply them in our lives. With that, I want to move towards the end of our speech and remember a few words about the musibah of tonight. Sallallahu alayka ya Hasan ibn Ali أيها العسكري يا ابن رسول الله يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. Let's call upon Allah and ask Him by the wasila of Imam Askari alayhi salam. يا وجيها عند الله يشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله يشفع لنا عند الله. The hadith says that Imam Askari alayhi salam was so affected by the poison that was fed to him by the Khalifa of the time. His entire body was shaking on this evening. At one point, the thirst had overcome him. He tells his servant, "Can you bring me something to drink so I can quench my thirst?" The servant brings him a glass of refreshing liquid. The Imam alayhi salam tries to put it to his lips, but the poison has taken so much effect. His hands were shaking so much he could not bring the cup to his lips. He tells the servant that, "Can you go inside the quarters, my private quarters? You will see my son who is there. Can you bring him to me?" The servant goes inside the room that the Imam points to. He sees a young boy standing in prayer. He tells him the message from his father. Imagine the scene. The Imam of our time, Salamullahi alayhi, is in front of his father. His father is dying in front of his own eyes. The son takes the liquid and he brings it to the lips of his father. He helps him drink the nourishing liquid. At that point, the Imam alayhi salam begins to cry and he calls to Imam Zaman. He says, Ya Sayyid Ahla, Ya Sayyid Ahli Zamani. O leader of the people of his time. And then he quotes an ayah from the Quran, فَإِنِّي ذَاهِبٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّي. Oh my son, you should know that I'm going to my Lord. He is leaving this world. Then he tells him, Antal Mahdi, you are the rightly guided one. Anta Hujjatullahi ala ardi, you are the proof of Allah on the earth. And he gives him the secrets of the imama. He prepares him for the responsibility of becoming the Sahib al-Zaman, the Imam who is the one who is the eye of Allah, the seeing eye and the hearing ear. But let us take our hearts for a moment to Karbala, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam is looking at the face of his son. Who is this son? It is Ali, the young one. It is the young baby, the murdi, the feeding infant. And he is looking at him for one last time. He is bidding him farewell. He is telling Zainab that I wish to bid my infant a last farewell before I leave this world. And as he is looking at his baby, and the baby is so thirsty that his cry can barely fill the desert air, the arrow comes flying from the enemy quarters. That arrow, which is not meant for a baby, is striking the baby. At one moment, the baby is thirsty, but now the baby is no longer thirsty. Why is the baby no longer thirsty? Is it because the baby has been fed some milk from his mother? No, it's because the baby's head has been severed. Allah la'natullahi ala al-qawm al-zalimin wa say'alamu alladhina zalamu ayyaman qalbin yanqalibun. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein. Hussein, Hussein, King of martyrs, Hussein, Hussein has been slaughtered. Hussein, Hussein, true believers, Hussein, Hussein are his weepers. Hussein, Hussein, King of martyrs, Hussein, Hussein has been slaughtered. Hussein, Hussein, true believers, Hussein, Hussein are his weepers. Here I lie, Ya Mawla, run to me before I die. Oh my uncle, there's my blood. Oh my uncle, there's my blood. Let me see you one last time as I'm leaving, going further. I am seeing your murder. I am seeing your murder. martyr. I'm a martyr sliced for you, to be sacrificed for you. Oh, there will be pains for you when no one remains for you. Hussein, Hussein, King of martyrs, Hussein, Hussein has been slaughtered. Hussein, Hussein, true believers, Hussein, Hussein are his weepers. Hussein, Hussein, King of martyrs, Hussein, Hussein has been slaughtered. True believers are his weepers. King of martyrs, Hussein, Hussein has been slaughtered. Hussein, Hussein, true believers are his weepers. Why the pain, Ya Hussein, while we die upon this plain? Where's Muhammad? Where is Qasim? Where's Muhammad? Where is Qasim? Your soldiers so young have been slain. All the loved ones that you've carried, all the young ones you've buried, all the young ones you've buried. Now you've witnessed all your sons swear to you by the Quran, we will serve you on and on. Hussein, Hussein, Hussein John, Hussein, Hussein King, Hussein, 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 true believers, Hussein, Hussein are his weepers. Hussein, Hussein, King of Hussein, Hussein has been slaughtered. Hussein, Hussein, true believers, Hussein are his weepers. Abbas, Ya Abbas, Abbas, Ya Abbas, Abbas, Ya Abbas, Abbas, Ya Abbas. Oh, flag bearer, where's your hand? Is it bleeding on the sand? Will Sakina understand? You were loyal to her command. Oh, flag bearer, where's your hand? Is it bleeding on the sand? Will Sakina understand? You were loyal to her command. Hussein, Hussein, King of martyrs, Hussein, Hussein has been slaughtered. Hussein, Hussein, true believers, Hussein, Hussein are his weepers. Hussein, Hussein, King of martyrs, Hussein, Hussein has been slaughtered. Hussein, Hussein, true believers, Hussein are his weeper. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Leave me there, Hussein. Vay, Hussein. Vay, Hussein. Vay, Hussein. Vay. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان عجل الله تعالى فرجك وجعلنا من أعوانك وأنصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته. Good. Alhamdulillah. How are you doing? How about you? Good.
عليكم السلام أحسنتم.
Good. Alhamdulillah. Thank you. How are you? Alhamdulillah.
Like my dad.
Bro, no, but dude, inshallah, bro, it'll be good, bro. If you do the right steps. I can understand the joke, but like, why are you
Why are you doing that? So when I press go, like nothing changed.